What's going on, everybody? We got some big games going on this weekend, and by big, I mean Army-Navy going on CBS 3 o'clock this Saturday. We've also got the start of bowl season. Can't believe it. The season just ended last Saturday. We got a bowl game this Saturday. This is Always Talking Ball. Tyler Noe, Lance Barton. We're doing our Bowl Mania. Pick them again. It's confidence picks. There's 47 games. You got to order them from 47th to 1st. 47 being most confident. Go to ESPN Fantasy 2024-25 Always Talking Ball Bowl Mania. Enter in, and if you win, you get $100 gift card to Homefield Apparel. It's one of the sponsors of the show. If you go to homefieldapparel.com right now, ATB15 gets you 15% off checkout. There's still time to get some of those Christmas gifts, get them shipped in before Christmas hits here in a couple weeks. We wanted to hop on here. We've got, a little bit of a lax, week here before playoffs kick off in about a week from Friday. Playoffs kick off. And we just wanted to chop it up and talk a little bit about transfer portal, a little bit about the coaching carousel. So, Lance, let's start off with some portal talk. We've had some commitments already. The portal's been open since Monday, the 9th. And I mean, it seems like it's been ablaze. It seemed like it's been on fire. Guys entering the portal left and right. We've got Micah Hudson from Texas Tech going to Texas A&M. We've got Connor Wigman from Texas A&M going to Houston, an hour and a half down the road, going to play for Willie Fritz. And
is he from there? I saw him.
He might be.
I saw it, but again, who knows, man? You know how these people are, like when these players are when they commit with the graphics and whatever. Like he said something about H-Town, I'm coming home.
Yeah.
So maybe he is. I don't know. But
he might have just walked to his visit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Darian Mensah, quarterback from Tulane, going to Duke. That was very, very quick. It was almost like he just kind of knew where he was going to go. And then obviously leaving Duke is Malik Murphy. And you got Eric Singleton, wide receiver from Georgia Tech in the transfer portal. You got Miller Moss, Deuce Robinson, a lot more USC Trojans in the portal. Give me your thoughts on some of these guys.
Is half of USC's team in the portal?
It's typical with the Lincoln Riley team.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like their best players. Like all of them.
Yeah.
Are in the portal.
They were 7-5 teams, so how good really were they?
Right. Well, I mean, they've got. I mean, Deuce Robinson. I get to your. Yeah,
got some talent.
I got you, but Deuce Robinson, Zachariah Branch, he's not in the portal yet, is he?
No.
Okay. Yeah, but I've heard rumor that there. I mean, again, if you're him, you're looking around like, where's everybody at?
Yeah.
Type deal. But a couple of these I just wanted to hit on. Early. Good for Willie Fritz getting like a very talented QB like Wigman, former 5-star. Dude out of high school, and I know it didn't work out for him as well as he'd like at A&M, but we saw some flashes from him that he can play. So him going to play with Willie Fritz. Fritz has had good success with quarterbacks in the past. Houston played some solid defense this year, like part of the year as well. So that would really help Willie Fritz and Houston in that wide open conference of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw teams this year that were predicted to finish dead last in the conference, win the conferences in Arizona State.
Yep.
So maybe he can flip it next year with Houston and be a much more competitive football team in that conference. And I believe they will with Wigman. And Darian Mensah to Duke. There's a chance, man. I put this out on our X page, and I think you agreed with me. Like, there's a chance that only time will tell that Mensah could be an upgrade from what they had. I mean, Malik Murphy's solid, but Malik Murphy is not the reason that Duke was. I mean, he helped, but like as a quarterback. But the main reason Duke was what they were was that Manny Diaz defense and being fortunate in the turnover margin.
Yeah.
But Mensah played really well at Tulane this year as a true freshman, has a ton of talent.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to get him minimum for the next 2 years because he's got 2 years that he has to play still in college football. So if you're Duke, that's a huge win, man. That's like you lost a guy of the talent of Murphy, but you're going to get a guy like Mensah that we've already seen play a ton of college football, and he played against Kansas State. He played at Oklahoma and Norman. He played some solid competition and played well in those games. There's a chance, man, that could be an upgrade.
Surprising that he decided to leave with Summerall coming back.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Summerall's obviously – I'm wondering, though – no, I don't think so. I don't think he probably didn't have a clue. It did actually come out today that Summerall and North Carolina were in like serious discussions. I was reading some stuff on that today, that was like a thing that they were trying to decide on, of what, Belichick, you had Summerall, you had, we saw that article came out that your old boy, Tommy Reese, and he had Nick Saban backing him, which I thought was funny, that Nick Saban's sitting there backing the guy that's going head to head with Belichick for that position. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, Tommy Reese is very well respected within coaching circles.
He is, man. He is. So just, but obviously, right out of the gate, when I saw the transfer portal, like when it opened up, I think it opened up on the 9th, didn't it? December the 9th, Monday. Dude, wide receivers everywhere. Receivers everywhere. Now that's the main position where there's a ton that can play at the college football level. These 7-on-7 camps in high school that you've got going on across the country, that position, I mean, we saw it this year with a lot of the true freshman receivers, Cam Coleman at Auburn and Ryan Williams at Alabama, Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, and so on, where you've got kids coming in now at high-level P4 football at the wide receiver position that are ready to play right out of the gate and making, like, huge impacts. So, I mean, there's just a ton of receivers, man, in this portal that can go somewhere like a really high-level Power 4 program and turn that entire offense around just like that. So, I mean, Kevin Concepcion was a freshman All-American at NC State. I think he's listed as the number 3 overall player in the portal right now, period, by On3. Eric Singleton was around 1 or 2, the receiver from Georgia Tech, and it looks like Singleton's down to Auburn or Georgia. I mean, think if Auburn did land a solid QB, and then they land Eric Singleton, and you pair up Eric Singleton with Cam Coleman and all those freshman receivers that Auburn brought in this past year in that recruiting class by Hugh Freeze, and then you get a veteran guy like Singleton, who's one of the top receivers in this portal, and a solid QB. I mean, dude, that offense all of a sudden is a completely different offense. You got a ton of players back on defense, and Auburn all of a sudden is now a projected 9-3, 10-2 type football team.
What would be considered a solid QB? I mean, they've got Deuce Knight coming in, right? So, but in order to get that maybe a bridge quarterback, they've been linked to Ashton Daniels from Stanford.
Yeah.
And then I think Malik Murphy from Duke has been a heavy rumor there.
Exactly. Murphy, I've only seen Murphy linked to 2 people right now, 2 schools right now, and that's Auburn and Miami. That's the only 2. So, I mean,
which is wild because, I mean, yeah, nothing against Malik Murphy, but I think he was 71st in total QBR. I mean,
yeah, to be honest with you, he's the definition of, you can't teach like whatever he is, 6'5", 230, 240. You can't teach, he can throw a football through a car wash and it won't get wet.
He just doesn't run.
No, he doesn't. I mean, he's got some feet, but like doesn't use them a ton, which is interesting because Auburn obviously really wants to run the RPO.
He must have learned that being at Texas behind Quinn Ewers for a year.
No kidding. That's funny. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't really seem like the Hugh Freeze, RPO type QB. But again, you can't teach some of the things that he's got, some of the talents that he has. Maybe you put him on a team with better coaching and better receivers and more talent around him than what he had at Duke. I mean, maybe, but also he's going to be facing pretty significant upgrade in defenses across the SEC overall. So, yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know how that would translate.
Yeah.
But, I mean, how about Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma? I think most people have given up on him after what you watched on TV this year when you watched this kid play. I understand why most people would think that. I'm going to be stubborn. And because I was so high on him before the year and I look like an idiot right now, I'm going to be stubborn and decide that he either is booty or he is someone that, because this actually is 100% true. He literally had an offensive line that over half of the starting offensive line already wasn't good, already didn't have depth, and they were riddled with injuries. And I've never seen a team ever that I can remember in college football where their top five wide receivers on their depth chart were all out almost the entire year. Like almost the entire year. And what's wild is there's like 3 of those guys, like Nick Anderson, for example. There's 3 of those receivers for Oklahoma. They're in the portal right now, and all 3 of them are listed very high on the On3 transfer portal ranking. So it shows you what kind of talent that those guys have. Like, dude, none of them hardly played almost the entire season. And you moved away from the Jeff Levy type of up-tempo, more modern type college football offense, and you switched to more of a pro-style offense, which is not his forte, which is not Jackson Arnold. It's not what he does. That's not what he did in high school in the state of Texas. That's not what he signed up for to go to Oklahoma to play football for. So if he does go, I mean, I can't imagine him going anywhere else but Mississippi State to play for Levy.
No-brainer.
Right. It seems like a no-brainer. But again, he's been linked to Auburn. I mean, dude, if you're a quarterback, you're linked to, if you're a quarterback in the portal, you're linked to Auburn right now. Brother Hugh's going after all of them.
Yeah.
But I mean, if he could go to a more of like a fit and system and actually have talent and players around him to help build around him, maybe he can be the guy that everybody thought he was going to be. But it's either that or he's just flat out booty cheeks. And we don't know which one it is. Which one do you think it is?
I'm not giving up on him quite yet.
Yeah.
He had some turnover issues. I think that can be fixed. I think in Levy's system with some quick, easy throws and kind of getting in a rhythm and everything, I think that would go a long way, obviously, in building some confidence, especially, if he goes to Mississippi State first part of the season next season, just kind of building that confidence as they go. It's still tough for me to think of Mississippi State because Jackson Arnold was going there to improve a ton. Because again, if Jackson Arnold's linked to Mississippi State, Michael Van Buren is in the transfer portal, and from what we saw from him this year, he looked really solid.
He can play, man. Yeah, he can play.
They put up 31 points against that Georgia defense. So he was running around and everything. So he was getting shoved by Kirby on the sidelines, all that good stuff. So
I love it. You're salty today. So this is not transfer portal, but it's the age of. Dude, how about all the graphics that you're seeing that so and so strikes a new deal?
Yeah,
to stay at their pro. Like all these guys now get graphics and announce that they're staying when they're not even eligible to go pro. Like it's such a huge ordeal now. The transfer portal is that it's just as much of a big of a deal for people now to make these huge grand announcements that they're just staying at the program that they're already enrolled at and they're already playing at, and that like they're not even eligible to go pro. Like Dylan Stewart, for example, at South Carolina, that's the big one that I keep bringing up, that Dylan Stewart strikes a new deal to stay at South Carolina, earning $1.5 million this coming up year, which is over $100K a game for an edge rusher, for a true sophomore edge rusher. He's good. He's really good. He's one of the best in the country.
Yeah.
Good for him for earning that. Hey, if programs are going to be paying that kind of bread for young edge rushers, shoot, why not? That probably motivates a lot of these cats to go out and get some more sacks and get some more tackles for a loss. Well, you can get that kind of cash. But the big one that the last couple of days, and we'll get into this in the offseason when they actually do get all the people they're going to be landing in the portal. But look out for your favorite coach and Brian Kelly and LSU with the fact that old Nussmeier announced that he's coming back. I think that is a big deal. With them not landing that big-time freshman QB out of Bryce Underwood when that happened. And I'm sure they were probably looking for somebody to maybe bridge the gap to him anyway. But with Nuss coming back, and from what I'm seeing in this transfer portal stuff, again, if you're a receiver, you're linked to LSU.
Mm-hmm.
And they've already got a couple of guys coming back that are really good. They're going to be coming back. We might be looking at a thing this year when this transfer portal cycle is over with, that LSU's got a crazy offense that's going to be coming back for the next season.
Yeah, it's interesting that C.J. Daniels entered into the portal, wide receiver from LSU.
Yep.
Who's obviously linked to Auburn, Ole Miss. But Nick Anderson is Oklahoma wide receiver.
Yep.
He's on A&M's radar. He's on LSU's radar.
Yep.
So, yeah, you just LSU could have an embarrassment of riches. It's just, Nuss is going to make some throws like he always does, but he's going to make some throws to the other team too. So,
And I've seen Alabama linked to a couple of defensive linemen. There was a 5-star. He was one of the top 3 or 4 defensive linemen in the country coming out of high school last year. Was at Texas A&M this year. He's linked to right now to Alabama, South Carolina, and North Carolina. We'll get more on them here in a minute.
Yeah.
And defensive lineman Kelby Collins out of Florida. He was really good his true freshman year last year for the Gators in Napier. And they ran more of a four down lineman type set. So he was more like kind of a heavier defensive end type deal. He's not like an elite pass rusher off the edge, more like LT Overton was for Alabama this year. Again, he's not your 3-4 type defense where you have these super twitchy, fast, like a Dylan Stewart coming off the edge for South Carolina, like we were talking about a minute ago. He's not that type of a defensive end. He played in that system last year, and then Florida kind of changed up their defensive schemes a little bit this year when they brought in Ron Roberts, the defensive coordinator, and they tried to move him a little more inside to the kind of a more traditional defensive tackle look, and that just not his game. Didn't fare well for him. So I think it's kind of a mutual deal there where very talented kid out of Birmingham is in the transfer portal. He's heavily linked to Alabama, and Alabama's new 4-2-5 system that they run with defensive coordinator Kane Womack. He fits that mold that LT Overton did for Alabama this year, that 6'4", 6'5", kind of that 260 to 275 range that plays defensive end. Again, they're not going to be those super twitchy pass rushing type DNs. They're more the guys that play on all 3 downs, could stuff the run, can get after the passer, but they've got other pass rushing specialists that they bring in for their edge rusher type positions. So I think he fits what Alabama wants to do. We'll see if that's what they end up getting him or not.
Yeah.
So while we're on the transfer portal, how about some of these cats that are in the college football playoffs right now that are in the portal?
I was going to bring that up. We still got 12 teams who are playing. I'm not going to say meaningful games because some bowls are still meaningful to some teams, but they're playing playoff games. And, after they lose, they get 5 days. If it's after December 28th, of course. So if anybody loses, within the next weekend, they'll have, about a week there before December 28th, before the portal closes. But after December 28th, for New Year's Day, for instance, they get 5 days to enter the portal if they want to. Obviously, if there's any coaching changes that go on with any of those teams after the fact, any head coaching changes, they will get 30 days to enter the portal. So these guys can go in after the portal. I don't know. Do you see anybody? I mean, you got anybody that you're hearing? Anybody that you think could possibly hop in the portal after all is said and done with the 2024 season?
I don't know about anybody that I'm hearing necessarily at the moment that is absolutely when this season's over, they're hopping in the portal. We've heard Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State, for example, talk about he's talked with a lot of players on his roster, and some guys were saying that they wanted to wait until and he was like, no, that's okay. Go ahead, enter your name. If we would like for you to still play here with us through this playoff run, and let's go see if we can do some damage here in this playoff together. But if you want to move on and go to the program that is wanting you and go ahead and get it, that's totally fine. The way he's handling it is very interesting. And I would like to say it's a breath of fresh air, but I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm going to call it a breath of fresh air the way he's kind of handling this.
Yeah.
I feel like players will want to go play for Kenny Dillingham, to be honest with you, and how he is handling these things. Not only is he cool with players getting in the portal, but he's saying look, we'll help you land to wherever you want to go. But we want you to know that we want you to stay with us through this playoff. But if you want to go somewhere else, we understand. So I don't know who all yet from Arizona State is planning on entering, but I'm sure based off that conversation that Dillingham had, I'm sure there's going to be some.
But you got some dudes from Georgia hopping in the portal already?
Yeah, Julian Humphrey starting corner for Georgia. Former 5-star freshman. He's in the portal. So I don't know.
He made some good plays in the SEC championship game.
Yes, he did. He can play. And he's linked. He was one. I saw his graphic of the teams he's linked to, and it was hard to even see the background of the graphic because of so many teams' logos. Because obviously he's a very big time talent. I'm sure he'll end up at whoever's got the most NIL money, your
Mhm.
Oregons, your Texases, your Ohio States, and A&Ms, places like that, will end up getting him at the end of the day. But I'm just wondering, is he playing through the
Right.
playoff?
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything on it. Like, I haven't seen, is he planning on playing, or are they telling him, like, no, you in the portal, you're gone. So I don't know how this works.
We don't know anything coming out of Georgia right now.
No, we don't.
They're
We don't
keeping
know
everything
anything about
tight-lipped.
the quarterback situation. I mean, Tyler and I were talking off air about, I mean, they've got a former 5-star, very athletic quarterback that is a very popular name because of his NIL situation that he had at Florida, and that's Jaden Rashada. And Rashada and his family, they were suing Billy Napier and suing Florida for the NIL stuff, mishap that happened there. He went to Arizona State. It didn't work out for him at Arizona State, and he got in the portal and left and transferred to Georgia. Well, he's on the roster at Georgia. And now that Carson Beck is out and not playing, we saw Gunnar Stockton, what he did in that second half against Texas, played really well, was efficient, made that one awful interception throw that he made. But again, he played well. But it's just, Tyler and I have been talking, like, do we think, is there a chance that with the talent and the dual threat ability of Rashada, that they give him some sort of package or anything in this, we don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody knows. I keep seeing all these articles of people wondering, and it is just tight-lipped. Nobody knows, and nobody's talking about anything out of Georgia's camp right now. So no idea. But I've got a guy's name that I want to mention that I think could be very interesting come transfer portal time once their team is done in this college football playoff. And that is Quinn Ewers, quarterback at Texas. What is he going to do after the season? Because most people that you talk to is, if he doesn't go pro, you got to imagine that Texas, their fans, and probably what they should do, it's Arch Manning time after the season's over. So if Ewers is not going to go pro, because some of the draft mocks that you see, I mean, he's not that high. Like, his stock has dropped a little bit this year. So he would be very sought after, obviously, in the transfer portal by a lot of teams for a huge NIL deal. So I'm wondering if Quinn Ewers decides he's going to come back and play in college football. I don't think that's going to be at Texas. Do you?
No, and if it is Texas, Arch Manning's not going to stick around another year.
No way. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that you have to make a decision there, and that's just the decision you're going to have to make, and you're going to have to make a decision. It's Arch Manning.
Yeah.
I'd be honest with you, I would like to say that it would be maybe there would be a little bit of drama there as far as, like, who you decide. I don't think there even is any drama. I think it's, Quinn, we appreciate everything you've done here, buddy, but we'll help you land on your feet wherever you want to go, but we're going with Arch this next year. So that's something to keep an eye on. If Arch Manning does not go pro, if Quinn Ewers does not go pro, I think he's going to enter the transfer portal. Because, again, like you said, I don't think there's no way in hell that they're not going to Arch after this year. And don't be surprised if you see Arch, and I've seen a lot of people say that they think for Texas to win this national championship, if they're going to win the national championship, that they think that we may have a Jalen Hurts to a Tagovailoa situation on our hands in this playoff, which would be interesting to see if that ends up happening.
Yeah, they already tried it at the halftime of the Texas game or the Georgia game in the regular season.
Yep.
So
that one's something to look out for. Is there anybody else you can think of that you think would possibly? I'm sure there would be a name that we're not thinking of that you could see do it.
Guys, I think of teams who have a couple different quarterbacks. I think of Penn State with Drew Aller and Bo Perbula. Perbula could maybe go into the portal, depending on what Aller decides to do. Right.
Aller's also, he's pro eligible, right?
Yeah, he's pro eligible. Yep.
Yeah.
And he's got the frame for it for sure. I don't know. He kind of reminds me of like a rich man's Daniel Jones a little bit.
Yep.
So.
And with this, that's another thing. With this quarterback class being, I mean, it's pretty much, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it's a pretty steep drop.
Yeah.
As far as what I've seen, as far as these mocks are concerned in the NFL draft. So you could see a situation here to where all eyes are going to be on these college football playoff games. Like a guy like Drew Aller could go out and, I mean, just light it up
Yeah.
in this playoff and play himself into the first round. I mean, that could happen. And for some of the, for multiple, I mean, Quinn Ewers could out of nowhere come out and just light the world on fire in this playoffs, and you'll have some NFL GMs that'll be like, "Yep, like I think it's worth. We need to take a shot at him. Go ahead and get him in our system, whatever." And he goes up, climbs up mock drafts. I'm not talking about being the first pick or even being a high first round pick. I'm talking about being high enough in the NFL draft mock to where you wouldn't come back to college and you would test the waters and go pro.
Yep.
I think there's a couple of guys you could say that about in this playoff that could do that. And those two are the main ones, Aller and Quentin Ewers.
Another team is Indiana, who's obviously Curtis Rourke's not going to be back, but they're looking at, from what I've heard, they're looking at Fernando Mendoza, transfer from Cal. So I think, a lot of quarterbacks are looking at Cignetti and Shanahan's system there that they ran this year, and how Rourke, I mean, there's a chance he might get drafted, lower round draft, but he looks like a solid, maybe a pro backup for 9-10 years.
Yeah, he went from not even sniffing the NFL to where, like you just said, he may get actually get drafted and make a roster.
Yeah,
that's possible that could happen. I agree.
Yep.
So
before we get on to Coaching Carousel, do us a favor, hit subscribe on Apple or Spotify right now, and hit subscribe on YouTube if you're watching. Make sure to send this show and this episode to a friend so they can watch too. And just make sure to keep following along. We've got some good stuff planned for our college football playoff previews next week. Rumor has it that we might have a couple of guests on. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But let's move on to the Coaching Carousel. And we've got to start in Chapel Bill, North Carolina.
Chapel Bill, okay.
Chapel Bill. Bill Belichick, coming from the NFL for 25 years.
Six-time Super Bowl champion head coach.
Six-time
the greatest head coach in the history of the NFL.
He's spent the last year on the Manning cast. Been very wise on Monday nights. Been a good watch. But he's going to coach North Carolina. He provided them a rumored 400-page football Bible almost, with everything he has outlined. And Lance, it wasn't but a year ago that we were getting fed the lines from the big-time talking heads that college football was in big trouble because all these coaches from college football were heading to the pros, and they didn't want to deal with NIL, and they didn't want to deal with the transfer portal, and they didn't want to deal with this and that and that. And now you've got, the guy with the most rings on his hand coming to coach the North Carolina Tar Heels. Because
he's not coming to coach one of the blue bloods of college football. No. He's coming to coach a basketball blue blood in football.
Exactly, because he will have a general manager in Michael Lombardi. He's going to know what to do with some of this money and where to allocate it and everything. Rumor has it that UNC is upping their NIL collective funding from $4 million to $20 million, which is quite a jump, which would put them probably close to the top 5 of this year's spending. So
and that's the key, man. That's the key.
Yeah. So thoughts on Belichick to UNC? What does this do for Belichick? What does this do for North Carolina? What do you see their ceiling kind of just on the field? All that.
Well, I mean, honestly, I think Belichick, you're playing with house money here. You're the greatest coach of all time in the NFL. Like, nothing's going to take away those 6 Super Bowl rings and the run you have with the Patriots. And if you've still got that itch that you want to scratch to coach football, I mean, it sounded like he had a lot of demands to even accept this position, and that North Carolina is meeting those demands, starting with the $20 million war chest for NIL and starting with the funding for him to be able to hire their assistants that he wants to hire. I mean, if you've got the funding at this point, I mean, college football, we've heard all like Josh Payton and everybody else talk about that college football is a transactional sport now. You see this every single year to where you can quickly, we've seen it with multiple teams, quickly build a roster that could compete at a very high level just like that because of the transfer portal.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's not a deal where Belichick's got to rebuild for 4 years or something. Like, we're talking about, like, I mean, there's a chance that this coming up year in the ACC, which is a weaker conference compared to the SEC or the Big Ten, that they could be a competitive football team. I mean, North Carolina was competitive. You know, they've been competitive under Mac Brown. I mean, they haven't been to the level that obviously they would like to be with quarterbacks like Drake May and Sam Howell, but they could compete at a really high level really quick. What I just have no idea is that the Bill Belichick that we obviously have come to accustomed to thinking that we know based off like interviews and press conferences and the rumors that you hear of stuff that goes on at practice back in the day at Patriots practices, and just how like hard nosed that he was and there's no nonsense whatever. Like, how's he going to handle a 18-year-old kid coming in his office being like, hey coach, I want to be guaranteed that I'm going to start. I want all these demands and I need you to pay me 7 figures to do that, or I'm going to hit the transfer portal and go to this school. Like, how does he handle all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And what do high school recruits and college players today, what does Bill Belichick like mean to them? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it a huge deal like to them to want to go play for a guy like Belichick, or would they rather go play for like a great college coach who's doing really well right now, like a Dan Lanning, a Sark, or whatever like that?
Yeah.
Like, I tend to think if the money is pretty neck and neck, there are going to be a lot of guys that want to go play football for Bill Belichick. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be interested in that. And then you throw on the part of that Belichick was selling to North Carolina that like he's going to create a pipeline. His whole deal is we need to be able to compete funding wise in NIL, and we're going to build a pipeline to the NFL. Well, if he can do that and show that early on, then look out. They really could build something pretty special there.
Yeah.
Honestly, man, I really have no idea. We have no precedent of this. We don't have a precedent of the greatest coach of all time in the NFL deciding out of nowhere to come coach, and then come coach in the climate that we have today in college football. What do you think?
I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with their defense, because if there's one thing that North Carolina football has not been known for, it's been defense.
Yeah.
Since Mac Brown was there, I mean, really, since as long as I can remember. But, I mean, I would think one of his first calls would be to his son, who was defensive coordinator up at Washington with Jed Fish.
Yep.
And rumor has it that, you know, part of this is that he was kind of setting up a job in waiting for his son.
Which, by the way, is hilarious. If you look at that guy, it's Steve Belichick. Look at him and see how he acts and how he carries himself. And, I mean, let's just call it what it is, man. He looks like a mountain man hippie up coaching football up in the Pacific Northwest. And North Carolina is that they call themselves like the new Ivies or whatever. There's like a certain programs. They're kind of a hoity-toity type like deal there at North Carolina. Like, not at all what Steve Belichick looks like and acts like. So that's hilarious to me if that's the case.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, again, if Belichick, his ideas thrive and their defense improves under Steve Belichick, then hey, there may be a path there. But I mean, again, they're in a conference where, as the current setup, it won't take much to get to the ACC championship game. I mean, again, the conference could improve, but right now you've got Miami and Clemson and SMU, and you've got occasionally a Virginia Tech, and North Carolina's been there. They've been 8 and 9 wins, for the past 5 years in certain years. So, but does North Carolina? I mean, you really thinking that administration and that AD, like, are they thinking, yeah, we're winning national championships, or they just want to start competing for ACC championships and start competing for college football playoff berths? I think if that's the case, I mean, you start with 7, 8, 9 wins and kind of go from there and see what happens. I think that's there. It depends on who he brings in. All right, the players he brings in. But I just think
I'm interested to see who's OC's going to be. I can't wait to see what staff he builds. Obviously, he's got connections out the wazoo all over the place.
Tom Brady's going to be quarterback coach.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
I
just
was
kidding.
one of the first things I did. I was like, "Where's Josh McDaniels at now?" That guy was Bill Belichick's offensive coordinator about 19 different times at the Patriots.
Yeah,
I was like, "What's he doing now?"
yeah.
Like,
If Steve Belichick's not available, maybe Matt Patricia can come be
yeah, yeah,
defensive
exactly,
coordinator.
dude. I mean, again, like all these
Yeah,
guys that he had up in the NFL, maybe he can build a pipeline
yeah,
to it. But you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, this is going to sound like a shot at SMU, and it's not. SMU comes into the ACC year one from the American Conference and makes it to the ACC championship game, and is a last second field goal away from winning the conference. So that was a good point you made there in regards to like it doesn't take like years or some crazy ordeal to like turn a program around. And we're not talking about North Carolina as some like bottom dweller, like 2-10. It's not like trying to turn Purdue around in the Big Ten right now.
hmm
Like that's not what this job is. Trying to turn North Carolina around in the ACC. You're taking a middle of the pack ACC team and trying to turn them into an ACC championship contender. Which you get a quarterback and a few players, that can happen pretty quick.
yeah, yeah. And looking ahead to next year, I mean, they don't play Miami, they don't play SMU, they got Clemson on the schedule at home. So there's a path there there's a path for any team right now, right? Who can do a quick turnaround, like in Indiana, right? A quick turnaround is not impossible. It's more possible than ever in our current climate in college football. They've got
Vandy brought in guys from New Mexico State and turned into a bowl team and beat Alabama this year. Like that, that's what this transfer portal can do.
Yeah. And props to North Carolina. They got a couple P4s on the out of conference schedule. They got TCU to start the game or start the season off. And then they go to the bounce house and play UCF, which brings us to our next couple of coaches. We didn't have to dig deep into the Google images for the YouTube thumbnails and the cover photos and all that to find pictures of Scott Frost in a UFC gear and Rich Rodriguez in West Virginia gear. So Scott Frost, obviously, he hasn't been coaching since he got fired midseason in 2022.
Yep.
Is that right? So
Matt Rule's first year was last year.
Yeah, so Scott Frost coming back to a completely different UCF team in a completely different conference since Scott Frost was there and they won the national championship.
And he's getting the band back together, bro. He's got Mackenzie Milton coming to be the QB coach. Yeah, I heard that. I heard that, the old national championship thing.
Yeah.
But I thought it was funny that me and you and O'Cole were Fred. We're sitting there texting one day, and I was like, "UCF should just they should just see what old Scott Frost is up to. What's he up to these days?"
Yeah,
I think Cole said he was like an analyst or something under Sean McVay for the LA Rams, and then like 2 days later, boom, there it is, Scott Frost going named UCF new head coach.
Yeah, and then we've always said we said it when Malzahn was there, and when they went to the Big 12. That they've got a lot of untapped potential there in Central Florida.
Yep.
A lot of guys who live in that state, recruits in that state who want to come play in Central Florida, especially now that they're in the Big 12.
Yep.
And, Frost, he kind of said it on his own. He's like, I would have never have left UCF if it wasn't my home of Nebraska calling me home to be the head coach. Obviously, in hindsight, not a great move, but there's nobody in the world is going to say no to that. So props to him for coming back, though. Big 12 coach there. And another Big 12 coach is old Rich Rod, who just looks like he belongs in West Virginia gear. I haven't heard what McAfee's thoughts are on this yet, but I'm sure he's
been all over, man. He's been pushing it on his show, and he was making little when they were talking about JSU last week on game day. When they were breaking down the JSU Western Kentucky and doing their picks for the game and all that, Herbie was dropping little he was like, "Who's the coach at Jacksonville State again?" And McAfee was like, "Oh, you know who it is." Because at that point there was already rumors flying about it. But McAfee's been pushing for this hard to get him back to West Virginia from what I've read and from what I've seen on and heard on his show and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I also have heard not a lot, but I've heard there is a certain contingency of the fan base that are still not thrilled of him breaking up with him and going to Michigan like he did when he had West Virginia competing at the highest level. Yeah. And he kind of left them in a tough spot. West Virginia took a downfall after he left. And to be honest with you, they haven't been the same since. I mean, they just
Yeah.
haven't. They had a
Yeah.
they had a year there with what's his face, Geno Smith, and
Hmm.
I think was Dana Holgerson the coach during that time.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, they had a year or two there where they were pretty solid, but overall, they've not been no way near the same program since he left them for Michigan.
Yeah. When he left, I mean, it was anything but amicable, and there were lawsuits and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
And it wasn't pretty. Obviously, he flamed out at Michigan, then he went and coached at Arizona for a while. Obviously, Jacksonville State. So I think, yeah, there probably are some fans that are still pretty bitter about that whole situation.
yep.
But best thing to cure that is results on the field.
Yeah, if he starts winning
Um,
games, none of those people will care.
yeah, they won't give a crap.
No,
So,
and what a job he
um,
did at JSU. I mean, I
yeah.
grew up 20 minutes down the road from Jacksonville State's campus, and they literally went from non-division from the FCS level to the FBS level, and he's had them competing at a high level
Mhm.
immediately and wins a
Yeah.
conference championship this year with them. So, again, if they've got the funding and will fund stick some money in that NIL war chest, Rich Rock can win there.
Man, it was nothing like watching Pat White and Steve Slayton
Oh, I
tear it
love
up on the field back in the day.
it. Yeah.
Unfortunately, they blew that game against Pitt and costing themselves a chance in the BCS national championship game
Yep.
because they would have had a really good shot at winning one that year. And who knows, if he wins one that year, he may never leave. He may have never left for Michigan. So another guy, Dan Mullen. He's heading back to head coaching. He's not going to the SEC. He's not going to the ACC. He's going to the Mountain West. He's going out to Las Vegas, and he's going to coach UNLV. Barry Odom left there. We'll get to him here in a bit when he went to Purdue. Barry Odom did the unthinkable, really, in 2 years at UNLV. I mean, a program that hasn't won anything. He had him in back-to-back Mountain West Conference championships, and he's just, and we know kind of what the NIL funding background was there, kind of with the whole Sluka deal and everything. But
Yep.
if they can, find some money in there and Mullen can get some people to invest in that program, he'd have a really good shot. And obviously, I think this is a good stepping stone for him because I think his goal is to get back to P4 coaching job too.
Yeah, and again, and now today's time where going around and recruiting out of high school, I mean, it's still a big deal, but it's not as big of a deal as it was when he was coaching in the SEC. That was the part he hated the most.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, now, man, you just hire like a general manager. You hire that type of a staff to do that stuff for you. And I think that, I mean, you think about it. Some of the teams he had at Mississippi State with Dak,
Mm-hmm.
and then the success he had there overall. And then at Florida, I mean, that group that he had with Kyle Trask and Kadarius Toney that ended up going to the SEC championship
Yeah.
game. If it wasn't for that DB throwing that throwing that cleat in the LSU game, there's a chance they're in a playoff game that year.
Yeah.
And they took Alabama to the wire in the SEC championship game that year. I mean, the Duke can coach, and the Duke can flat out coach offense.
Yeah.
He is going to, in my opinion, this is a take I'm going to give here. I think he is going to light the Mountain West on fire at UNLV. They already get better overall talent there right now under Barry Odom. I mean, they're getting like good Power 4 transferring in there already. They're going to continue to do that. Mullen's going to get him a quarterback. We already know that. He's always done that. And the type of like competition that he's going to be going up against, like, dude, some of those defenses and the players that he's going to be going up against, they're not going to be able to stop Mullen's offenses and the type of talent that he's going to have on offense. Like, it's really just going to come down to what we saw this year. It's going to come down to them in Boise in the Mountain West, probably year in and year out. And Boise better hope they get those games on the blue carpet because I'm telling you, Mullen's going to get players at UNLV. And I don't think that he would have taken this position based off the articles that we're reading and seeing. Again, he doesn't take this position if it wasn't for some demands that he needed to be made for the NIL, for hiring his staff, for what he needed to be able to be successful. He was having too much fun and was climbing the ladder in a hurry at ESPN because he did a really good job. at ESPN. He was great in the booth this year. Him and Matt Berry, I think they did those Thursday night games. They were solid in the booth together. I don't think he comes back and can start coaching in college football if it wasn't the right situation for him and if it wasn't for demands that was being made. He'll have UNLV balling quick. I mean, like you said, Barry Odom already had him balling.
Yeah.
He'll keep it going, and I think he's going to make it even better, personally, because they're going to get buckets on some of those defenses they're going to be going against in that Mountain West. And I agree with you. We'll be sitting here 2 or 3 years from now, and he'll be coaching somewhere else in college football at a P4 program. And as long as it doesn't go back to the traditional high school recruiting ways, Dan Mullen will be fine. Because he's going to have a general manager and a recruiting staff that's going to be handling that for him instead of him doing it. So I love the hire, as you can tell.
Yeah. Next year, the Boise game is on the blue carpet, but I mean, Dan Mullen's probably looking at this current playoff situation, and big if, this stays a certain way, he just saw Boise State get a 3 seed. So it's like 1 game away from, a couple games away from in the regular season of having a really good chance at, playing at a high level in the college football playoff. So you do that, 1 or 2 times, and the P4s will be calling. One more, obviously, we talked about UNLV. Barry Odom left UNLV, went to Purdue. Probably not a stretch to say that Purdue is one of the toughest jobs right now in the country, but 365 days ago, we were probably saying the same thing about Indiana.
100%.
And Kurt Signetti comes in from JMU, very similar to Barry Odom at UNLV, and wins 11 games right off the bat. Now, looking ahead to the Big Ten schedules, Purdue has one of the toughest schedules in the country again next year.
The Big Ten office just doesn't like Purdue football.
No. And if he can get some players in there and install his go-go offense, it'll be great. This one's a little confusing.
Is Brendan Marion come along with him?
What's that?
Is Brendan Marion the OC?
I don't know.
Go-go offense coming along with him?
Now that Dan Mullen's at UNLV, it's probably going to be. I would imagine he comes with him
because I know that there were some other teams that were really like knocking on the door, wanting to see if he was interested to come be the OC. But if he goes with Odom to Purdue, I'm with you, man. Odom's defense, with Marion's offense, that could be interesting at Purdue.
Yeah, this one's just kind of confusing to me because I feel like Odom obviously had UNLV knocking on the door the past 2 years, and this year of the playoff, I feel like you take that extra step next year at UNLV and you get to the playoff, then I feel like a lot better jobs would have come around than Purdue.
I agree 1,000%, man. I just think this is a situation of that Big Ten and SEC money right now, dude, is just next level. The resources that they can provide you at those 2 places right now with the TV revenue that's about to start kicking in this coming up year. I mean, you know how these guys are, man, with their egos. They believe that they can fix and they can do whatever. They think that they can do exactly what Kirk Signetti. Yeah, maybe they can. Maybe Odom can at Purdue. But I'm with you. That is a hard job and a much tougher job in a situation that he was in at UNLV. But if you're a Purdue fan, dude, this is was this best case scenario? Was this about as good? I saw some of the names being thrown around.
Yep.
And as far as a sitting head coach that has experience as a head coach and good winning experience as a head coach, I don't know who you could have gotten any better than Odom. To be seriously, I thought they were going to end up getting some probably high-profile coordinator from somewhere,
G5 head coach,
or
he is a G5 head coach.
But like a lower G5, like lower successful G5 head coach, not someone that. Let's be real, Odom's name was being mentioned this year. If Sam Pittman was going to get the axe at Arkansas, Odom's name was being mentioned for that. Mm-hmm. So, there's some high-level SEC programs and some other programs that his name has been coming up and being mentioned for some of them. If you're Purdue and you're a fan of Purdue, shout out Nick, then you're probably fired up. You got to be fired up, man, about Barry Odom.
Yeah, and I think they've got to do some upping to their NIL collective fund there at Purdue because we heard some numbers coming out from Walters that it was in the hundreds, thousands of range, which obviously is not going to compete.
Good Lord, that ain't gonna get it done today.
But again, Barry Odom is at UNLV has obviously with the whole Sluka deal and everything that came out then, it doesn't sound like he was working with a huge collective there either. So he's used to it. He might be used to not having a lot of money. So
Purdue fans just need to quit slinging all they need to quit slinging all that money in the NIL collective for the 7'6" centers they got in basketball.
yeah,
Go get some QBs and receivers and some defensive linemen for the football team, guys. Come on now.
that's where the money's at now.
Yep.
Last but not least, our good friend Mike Gundy. We almost had him on this list of leaving Oklahoma State, but it looks like they had about a 24-hour standoff. They got things figured out. I'm not sure. The rumor was that Gundy was being asked to take a pay cut so they could put more into, either like NIL or I'm not sure how all that was working, but Oklahoma. Again, if I'm Gundy, I don't know how well. I just don't know how well this marriage is going to be for the next year. Obviously, them knowing that they didn't want him there, he didn't. It's just really, it's kind of messy. And him
Very
coming
messy.
back, and
it's been messy for a few years, but you're right, it got way worse.
Yeah.
With this, dude, I picture this like if you've ever seen the movie Tombstone. I picture this as like Doc Holliday and Johnny Ringo standing there squaring off, about to throw down on some pistols in a gunfight. I picture like Mike Gundy just standing there with the athletic director and school president and all that, just having a standoff for hours at each other. That's wild, man. That Oklahoma State, for all that Mike Gundy's done for that program. Again, I'm not one of those that thinks that just because you did well as a coach that you're allowed to run the program into the ground. They played for the Big 12 championship game last year.
Yeah.
Like when Texas and Oklahoma were still in the Big 12. So I don't think it's anywhere big. I know that this year that was inexcusable with what they brought back this year to be that bad.
Yeah.
But he has built up enough cachet to where 1 year like that, even if it was as bad as it was, to do the things they did. But I don't blame them for the part of if like they need more money for NIL. And if Gundy's sitting there bitching about wanting more money for NIL, okay then. Well, we're paying you all this money. How about we cut your salary back a couple million for all these millions that we're already paying you? We're paying you all these millions to go 0-9 in Big 12 play. How about we cut it back a couple mil and we could go get some better players for you?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Before we get out of here, I've got a couple best bets if anyone's still listening. So it's an annual tradition in the Noe household where if anytime Navy and Army are playing, you got to take that Academy under. And I got it early. I got it at 43.5. It's down to 39.5. And I believe in at least the last 5 years, this game being played, it has not even eclipsed 39.5. Now, this game's going to be very, very good. Sometimes you watch Army Navy and it's 3-9 team versus 3-9, and it's not great. Navy's 8-3. Army is 11-1, and they're American Conference champions. And this has a chance to be a really good game, a really good watch. It's always fun to watch the game, but like a really good competitive game.
Yeah.
There's a chance that I get burned here and like these offenses go off, but I still think these defenses have a lot of pride. They know each other so well. I know they've kind of tweaked their offenses a little bit, but I think the defenses have a chance to stand up here. And obviously, when you get these teams who love to run the ball and not pass, that clock just keeps ticking. And I thought 43.5 was too high. Obviously, I was right. It's down to 39.5. So,
can you believe you got an Academy total over 6 tutties?
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, last year the total in the game was 28.
That was with the total amount of points scored, or that was the total that they put on the game?
That was the total they put, and it was actually pushed. It was 17-11 Army.
Unbelievable, man. So yeah, I agree with you. If it was still at 42.5, your boy here would have been jumping on that board with you, and I still might at
39.5 right now.
39 and a hook. I still might jump in there with you.
Yeah.
Because again, 38's a key number. So
yeah.
But over 6 tutties is definitely a key number. Over 42, and you got it. You said you got it under 43.5.
Under 43.5.
Nice, man. Well, yeah. I'll have a rooting interest there in that game to help pull it in for you.
I got 2 bets for bowl games already.
Sharp.
I'm taking in the Gasparilla Bowl next Friday, December 20th. I'm taking.
I'm with you. That was the only one I
Florida
was going to give. That's
Gators.
the only one I've given out.
That was a chomp if you were a Gator chomp if you were listening on podcast. I didn't get him at the best number, but I got him at Florida minus 12.5. It's 13.5, 14 right now. Darian Mensah, obviously, with Tulane, went into the portal. Kai Horton is in the portal. And then right after I made this bet, Ty Thompson went in the portal. So I'm not sure.
Ty Thompson is playing QB in the game. He's in the portal, but he's playing in the game.
Okay.
And I saw the graphics come out when Emory Jones was at Florida, and he played in the game, and it literally, the graphic showed the starting quarterback in the game was Emory Jones. It had his like size and number and all that on the TV.
Yeah.
And then it shows transferring right after this game or whatever, and like everybody like shared that to but everybody posted the picture of Ty Thompson was still playing in the game, and they shared the picture of Emory Jones from back then. But I'm with you. I got him at 13. It's the only bowl bet I've made of the year so far. I'm sure we're on the same page with this. Florida probably playing. Whoever is still on that roster, they're all going to be playing. They are one of those programs that is building towards the future. Those are the type of teams you want to take a look at in these bowl games. Obviously, Tulane got a ton of people leaving. Love John Sumrall. But I'm with you, man. I got him at 13. You said you got him at 12.5, Florida?
12.5.
Okay.
And then last bet, December 28th, 7:30 p.m. on ABC in San Antonio, Texas, in the Alamo Bowl. And I'm rolling with the Buffs and Coach Prime once again. He said they're playing. And anytime I hear a coach say everybody's playing, and I know for a fact everybody's playing, I'm going to take them, especially against a team that struggled to, play well at times against some good teams this year in BYU. So I got Colorado -1. It's up to -3 right now. So I took them a couple days ago at -1, basically a pick 'em. Just got to win the game for me. So I'm going to ride with Dion and the Buffs one more time. Hopefully Shadur and Travis Hunter do actually play. I think they will. One more I lean towards was Fran Brown in Syracuse because he said everybody's playing too. So anytime a coach comes out and says we don't opt out here, we're playing, that's a good sign. So, but you just never know with these bowl games, man. You just never know. So I'm going to take a shot on a couple.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like placing anything like early on.
Yeah,
or giving out any picks this early. Yeah. But I'm with you. The first pick that I made was Florida at -13.
Yep. All right, that's it for us. We'll be back on Monday with part 1 of our college football playoff preview. We're going to tackle 2 games, and then later on in the week, we're going to tackle the other 2 games. And it's going to be a blast. We're going to have a blast talking about it. We're going to have a blast talking to our guests about it. And it's going to be fun, man. Can't wait for these playoff games to start. Can't wait for some of these bowl games to kick off and just a little mid-afternoon football on a Tuesday and Wednesday. It's good stuff. So for that, we're signing off, and we'll see you on Monday.